Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. This is a quote from Winston Churchill, and today we're going to be talking about A B testing, going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. So, how should you test in Klaviyo? What should you test? What are the rules? Are there any rules? And so on. Let's get straight into it. And the first thing that we should talk about is what should you test in the first place. So there's two types of tests in email marketing mainly, maybe three if we include sign up forms and pop-ups and things of that nature. But it's mostly campaigns and flows. Okay, so automated emails and campaigns. So first, let's start with automated emails. Oh, why are you telling me this? Why should I trust you, Ben? Okay, so in the last over 7 years, I worked with over 200 e-commerce stores and helped them generate over $30 million in revenue. I had to enlarge my image to get that point across. So yeah, maybe that's why. This has just been my experiences, and yeah, so that's why. Firstly, flows. So the important things about flows, we always want to start with the flows because it's the higher leverage email campaigns, right? Like you set up these 5 flows. Actually, for this client, I have more flows, but wanting to include this 5 because I want to keep the videos quite simple. You set them up once, maybe like 3-4 emails in each flow. You set them up really well, and then okay, so I'm not gonna say you shouldn't touch it for a year, but you could get away with it, especially if you have a store that does less than 50K per month. The reason why it's so funny, I think I made this point earlier. The reason why it's so funny for me to make these videos on YouTube is technically I'm looking to I don't know, present myself as some sort of authority on this topic, especially for people that make over 50K per month and up until like 2 mil. If you make more than 2 mil and you still like my videos, I love it and it's great. Um, it's I definitely work. I work with a couple of stores that are above that or businesses at that point. But anyway, so the point is like the reason why this is funny is because technically these videos are made for those people that make less than 50, because if you make more than 50 you shouldn't even watch this, because then you should not do it yourself. But if like you watch these videos, then just in my opinion a lot of this content that you're watching right now, in my opinion you should focus on the simple things and um just until you're at that level and you have some like decent flows in there, you watch the videos about the campaigns. You don't need to actually A/B testing, in my opinion, is quite an advanced thing, and for a lot of people it doesn't even make much sense, especially if you're in that range like 0 to 50K. It definitely makes more sense above 100. Okay, because then you have a bigger email list, which means your tests will actually have some statistical significance, which is something we're going to be talking about more. But if you really want to go the extra mile and you just want to completely disregard what I just said, I drink some tea for adding extra emphasis, then you should test on flows first. You don't really need to test on campaigns that much. If your list is less than 10K, like 10,000 people on your email list, if you have less than that, in my opinion, you don't need to worry too much about testing, because it just adds another variable. We're going to discuss it after this point. That I make this point in this video. We will discuss it. But these are just my experiences and my thoughts on this, okay? Um, so the reason why we test flows is because time is on our side. So the thing I like to test in flows is subject lines. Why? Because the subject line, apart from people seeing who is sending me the email. By the way, sender names is not something that many people talk about. It's something you can test. We tested so many different things, like, but I just don't like it when, for example, Eric emails me from Klaviyo, but the email sender name just says Eric. I'm like, who is Eric? And but if they said Eric from Klaviyo and there's enough space on Gmail, especially on mobile devices, 70%, 80% of traffic is on mobile. There's enough space for them to get away with it because Klaviyo's name is quite short, right? Um, but if your business name is, I don't know, let's think of one, white table pillows, Doesn't make any sense, but let's just go with that. I just wanted to say something with 3 words so that Eric from White Table Pillows, that's going to be really long and it's not going to be fitting into the inbox. All right. So we want something short. So if your business name, in my simple rule of thumb, if your business name is longer than I think 10 characters or maybe 12, 13, then you shouldn't include, in my opinion, a name, but you can include in the signature. Okay. In the signature, you can definitely have Eric and you can have handwritten signature. We talked about this handwritten signature with a picture like this one, like this circle, and that can look quite professional. So I'm a big fan of that. But with the sender name, just have your business name so that people know who's sending them the email. And in this long-winded answer, then the thing that determines the open rates after that on flows is the subject line and the preview text, by the way. So those are the things I like to test. And in there, what we're going to be doing, it's called multivariate testing. It's also known as ABC testing. So what that means is you're going to start testing A versus B, like welcome versus welcome to the Klaviyo universe, I don't know, team, squad, whatever people like to do. Actually, that's kind of like a long subject line, but let's just go with that one. So you're testing A versus B, right? And then you're going to let some time pass. You're going to gather some statistical significance. So what is statistical significance? So in my opinion, it also depends on how big is the difference between the winners. Like if you send, let's say, 500 on one version and 500 on the other, and there's clearly a winner. Like A has a 30% open rate and B has a 20% open rate. Then yeah, you can select A with that amount. But I think under 500 impressions or 500 opens, I wouldn't consider claiming one as a winner. And by the way, Klaviyo also just does it automatically. Like you can set it up when you're inside of Klaviyo. You can tell Klaviyo to select the winner whenever there's statistical significance. Okay. And the reason why it's called ABC testing is because once you have that, once you have statistical significance, then you're going to test the winner against C. Right? You can technically also test 3 things at the same time, but in my opinion, that just gets too complicated. So you do that, and then you test it against the win. And since A had a better result than B, and now you're going to test it against C, once again, you're going to have the best result, which means in the long run, you're always going to be having higher and higher open rates. I mean, if you're going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G tests, and A is always the winner, then now you know. Maybe your open rates haven't increased, but now you know this is the best subject line. All right. And then maybe you can start testing something else. But first, I would recommend testing either the subject line or the preview text, especially the subject line. Maybe first subject line and then the preview. Like once you tested like 3, 4, 5 things and you have statistical significance, and now you can see why a store that has less than 50K revenue per month, 50K is a little bit arbitrary, but at the same time, it is numbers based because at that level, unless your average order value is really low and you have a lot of impressions and a lot of abandoned carts, for example, then you're not going to have enough data to do so much testing. So like if let's say your store does 50K per month, I think it takes 3, 4, 5 months for you on a normal, let's say abandoned cart email one, for you to have statistical significance. Probably more, to be honest. It's going to take longer time. So now that we've spent a lot more time on the campaign side, campaigns testing than what I was planning for, on the flow side, let's talk about the campaigns. Number one thing you should test on campaigns is smart send time. It determines the best time of the day to send emails to your people. Quick trick, have Google Analytics installed on your store and you will find this out a little bit earlier, or you will have a good idea about it. Like if you have let's say less than 12,000 subscribers and you already want to know what is the best send time, because this is only applicable for 12K. Klaviyo just set it at that level. This is active subscribers, active profiles, by the way. Then you can kind of figure out on Google Analytics. And the quick spoiler alert, so over 50% of the time, the best time to send, I've seen it to be over like after 5 p.m. Usually like 7, 9, 11 p.m. are the most common ones. Um, I think I can remember one out of the last 30 times when I did this test. It's very scientific. It's proper like testing. Klaviyo gathers a lot of data. There was one time in the last 30 stores where we did this test for, where it was actually 9 a.m., which is what people often think is the best time to send an email. So yeah, first thing to text. Then I think we already talked about subject lines. I like to test subject lines more on flows than on campaigns, and here's why. Because on flows, it actually has a tangible impact on the results because it will lead to more opens over time and it will lead to more clicks, therefore more sales. However, on campaigns, the purpose of subject lines is a little bit less on actually getting better results right now. On campaign side, even though it's a shorter term thing, you can technically do it in a way where, like, let's say if you have 100,000 subscribers and you test A subject line versus B, and you set it for like, you can set the test to happen in the first 20% of your list. So Klaviyo will determine which one is the winner in the first 20, like let's say the first 20k of your list in this 100k example. Then it will send the winner to the last 80%. So that can be a nice trick to get the higher open rate. This once again is more relevant in my opinion for bigger stores. But yeah, because like at the end of the day, if you have a small list, let's say 10k, in my opinion, it's like that's still relatively small list, and you send 5k of the versions to like version A, and version B you send to the other 5k, and the difference in the two subject lines, it was two different subject lines. Like, what did you learn? You cannot, in my experience, you cannot really like something that we try to do is like, okay, this is a benefit based subject line, and this one is a curiosity based. By the way, curiosity is almost always better unless you're offering a discount. um, but even at that point, curiosity can sometimes outperform the here's 10% off, here's something off, for example. um, what was I saying? Yes. So then what have you learned? Like benefit versus curiosity. There's so many other variables that come into, like, maybe you used a really good word in there in the benefit based one, or maybe it was shorter versus longer, and so on. Like, so many things impact this. I like more scientific ones. Like, let's say, do they like emojis or no? Like, include an emoji or no? It's like very binary, right? And then you can gather some data. You can have like 10 examples in campaigns where there's an emoji in there or not. And then now you have some data, maybe it will be, oftentimes, by the way, it's like 6.4 or 7.3. It's even at 7.3, I'm like, is it really, is emojis, like, if that was the winner, like, is that really the better one? And then you kind of have to test more, and then maybe you should have tested something else in the meantime. And was it all worth it to track all of this, by the way, at a 10k list? No, it wasn't a lot of times. Okay. Preview text. So very similar to subject lines. So the same points apply that I talked about with subject lines. By the way, in your subject lines, I would not usually recommend emojis or any kind of like special characters, because spam filters are really, really sensitive on subject lines, much less sensitive on preview text, even though the two are kind of the same on a mobile device. It's just a subject line at the sender name, subject line, preview text. This is how it shows up on a lot of Apple, iPhone, Gmail devices. There are other options out there, but it's just the reality is most people use iPhones, especially in the States. So the preview text is kind of like the hidden secret. Like, so many people don't have preview text anywhere. And if you're going to use, here's 10% off, here's an emoji, like percentage, dollar sign, like all of these special characters, try to use them in the preview text and not in the subject line, not in the main title. Okay. And the reason why I wanted to have a special shout out to preview text is because it's such a forgotten art, or a forgotten thing in email marketing, where and it's just, it kind of fits into my channel, I think, where we talk about the real things that have impact rather than the fancy things. It's one of those like non-fancy things that actually does make an impact. So great preview text, have something short, less than 5 words, and curiosity is king. Right. Pretty versus simple emails. So that basically means a lot of images and nice design, all of this fancy stuff, or just text. And yeah, about 70% of the time I've seen just text emails critically and categorically outperform pretty emails. Another aspect is the deliverability side of things, where pretty emails just end up in the inbox way more often than emails with images in there. And it is a little bit linear, where the more images you have, so it's not really like a binary thing like zero image or some images. So I have seen like a linear progress in there. Like if, for example, if you include your logo, it's fine, and then maybe something at the bottom is fine, or maybe like a product block. But that's in my experience where the benefit of using images stops. So whenever I have a client who's open to this, obviously not everyone is open to this, because some people care about this positioning stuff. And obviously, like, by the way, if you're selling expensive jewelry, I will create nice looking emails for you, okay? Because then it makes sense. For Dior, it makes sense to send pretty emails. For you, it probably doesn't, okay? So yeah, that's another thing to test. And if you don't believe me, by the way, test it, okay? Like, try it. And this is a one where, very important bit, by the way, you need to determine what is the metric that's going to determine the winner, because it happens quite often that one version will have more sales but lower click rates, and then which one do you trust? And then you kind of need to look beyond the numbers, where, oh, okay, it was actually one person who made a crazy big order which extrapolated or maybe like expanded the results more than what we would expect. So in my experience, the two metrics you should only be choosing from, unless you have a really big business. I don't know what these balloons are every now and then. I love Loom. So the two metrics are open rate and click rate. And unless you have more than 200K subscribers, I would just stick to these two. Anything before open that is being tested before they open the email, such as sender name, subject line, preview text, it's or send time. Send time is good. So these four things, it can only be four things. Open rate is going to determine your winner. However, whenever you test something within the email, such as this one, it's the content of the email. Like they already opened it when they see the two versions. Well, they're not going to see the two versions, but you get my point. Then, in my opinion, it should be the click rate. Okay, more trustworthy source of information. Longer versus shorter copy. Once again, shorter often wins. Another idea for you to test. And then after that, I just included some screenshots of what your campaign structure should look like. For the podcast listeners, I'm sharing some like Klaviyo screenshots of the flows and campaigns. I thought I might spend more time sharing these with you, but then I ended up talking more about flows and mindsets. So that's classic. If you got this far in the video or a podcast episode, thank you so much for listening. I love you. Make sure you check the next video. I'm going to link another video somewhere here at the end of this that I think is quite relevant to this topic. So make sure you check it out. Have a great rest of your day. And like, subscribe, comment, all of these good things. If you want to work with me, there's a link in the bio. You can contact me elsewhere too. Ciao.